Hey lovely people, this is Siren and welcome back to the channel. On today's video I want to talk to you a little bit about tarot and oracle systems and when do I use which one. So I thought it might be an interesting topic and a conversation to start really with other tarot and oracle readers, because the other day I was kind of thinking about why do I gravitate more towards tarot, for example, in certain moments, and in other moments more towards oracle decks. And at first I thought it was something completely random in my case. But the more I thought about it, the more I analyzed it, I've come to realize that it's actually not so random. Not all the time. So I basically started seeing certain patterns in my personal practice, and yeah, I thought I might tell you a little bit about it, and as mentioned, maybe also start a conversation and see how other practitioners and tarot and oracle readers approach this kind of a topic. By the way, a little side note, if you are a tarot or oracle beginner, or if you are just stepping into this world, don't worry, just keep watching. I'm going to give you a brief definition, explanation about what these systems are, and I'm briefly going to tell you the difference between the two. Tarot and oracle readers, don't worry, I'm going to make it brief. So, with all that being said, make yourself comfortable, grab yourself some nice hot beverage, and let's get into the video. Actually, before I begin telling you about when do I use tarot and when do I use oracle, I just want to give a quick disclaimer. And the disclaimer being that this video is not really intended to give you any sort of instructions on when you should use the tarot and when you should use the oracle. Because first of all, I don't believe there is such a thing as a rule on when to use which one. And second of all, I'm really not the kind of a person who would be bossing you around, okay? So I'm simply going to be speaking about my personal experience. You can get inspired by that if you want, or if you are a beginner, it can give you an idea on how to use these types of divinatory systems. But I really wanted to make it clear that this is not a instructional, educational sort of a video, all right? So, with that being said, I'm going to proceed with quickly tell my lovely tarot and oracle beginners what is tarot, what is oracle, and what's the difference, which is the most important thing in this particular topic right now. So, both of these things, tarot and oracle, are divinatory tools made of cards, right? Tarot is something a little bit more traditional. It's usually made out of 78 cards that are divided into two groups, the minor and major arcana. The majority of decks follow kind of the same systems and cards titles. Some modern decks change the titles a little bit or add a card or two, but they're mostly following the same 78 cards system. While the oracle decks are decks of cards that can vary in either the theme, so that they are very themed, and they can vary in the number of cards as well. So there is not a system that an oracle deck would follow. Every oracle deck is completely different. It follows its own system, so to speak. It can be themed from, I don't know, angels, mermaids, something darker, anything, you name it, right? So this is basically the simplest way of explaining you the definition. I really don't want to make it too long in this particular video. Let me know if you would be interested in something a little bit longer or more in depth. This is just so you have an idea what I'm actually going to be talking about. Now we can proceed to actually talking about when to use which, or again, rather, when do I use which one. I'm going to start off with tarot. Alright, so first of all, I'm just gonna say, tarot for me is something totally universal. Like, for example, if you were to ask me to choose one system that I should be using for the rest of my life, and now choosing between tarot and oracle, because there are also other systems, but in this video we are speaking about these two, okay? I would pick tarot, because I feel that tarot somehow contains everything. It is often also called the book of life, because tarot is something that contains every possible situation that a human being can go through in their life. And I feel like tarot system is generally very complete. I have never felt like a tarot deck was lacking a card for something, you see? As opposed to some oracle decks, for example, I do get that feeling sometimes with oracle decks. Like, this oracle deck could use this card, for example, or I don't know, or also the other way around. Maybe sometimes there are some oracle decks that I feel have cards that are not really relevant for me, for example. So yeah, but when it comes to tarot, I feel like it's very universal. It just contains everything that you could possibly need, that I could possibly need. By the way, excuse me in case I say in this video we, I mean me. It's just English isn't my first language. Sometimes I just I don't know, my mind puts we in the sentences. Excuse me. So with that being said, I could tell you that I can use tarot basically for anything and everything. Also, side note, another disclaimer, you can absolutely 100% use both tarot and oracle for anything and everything. It's not like you can't use tarot or oracle for some specific thing. At least in my opinion, you totally can. Okay, back to the topic and back to my experience. Since tarot is something that is more universal for me, it is something that I used to gravitate towards a little bit more in, for example, my daily readings. So if I do daily pulls, like a morning pull, when I ask what should I focus on during the given day, or what should I, for example, not focus on during the day, because it's also something I sometimes ask, like what element of the day should I ignore today? What is good for me to actually literally ignore? Something I think I haven't mentioned before on the channel. I tend to go to tarot decks for that. As well as my evening reflections, I also tend to grab my tarot deck. So anything that's like daily, something that I just need to grab a deck for, or if I'm traveling somewhere, I'm always bringing a tarot deck, not an oracle deck. For some reason, I just feel like it's more practical, it's more rich in messages, advice, I don't know. It is my experience. Again, let me know down below if you feel that way or not. So this is how I would be using tarot. So anything that has to do with daily readings, quick instant sort of messages, or traveling situation. The other very important thing for me in terms of using tarot are the bigger sort of readings, something that require more in-depth reflection or more in-depth analysis, if you will. So for instance, I tend to mention that on like some important astrological events, meaning like new moon, full moon, eclipses, or stuff like that, or even like birthday, new year. I think you get the idea. On these instances, I tend to do a little bit of bigger readings. Bigger readings meaning bigger spreads, so I use more cards. And again, if I am about to do a bigger reading that requires more cards, I immediately go to tarot. The reason is basically pretty simple and actually the same as I was saying all this time, because I feel like it can provide you with more information and more in-depth sort of reflection. And this kind of brings me to another point, which is that I see tarot as a tool that can really help you go deep. It is a tool that can give you a lot of perspectives, even if when you're doing a simple reading, like 1 card pull or 3 card reading or 2 cards reading, doesn't matter. I feel like tarot can really provide you with a very broad spectrum of meaning, advice, points of view, angles. So basically, whenever I want to go really deep with something, I really want to get to the core of some situation, I really want to sit and reflect on something in a very dedicated way, I go to tarot. In this case, it doesn't even matter whether it's a simple reading or a bigger reading. If I really want to spend time analyzing something, I'm definitely going to tarot, because I feel like tarot really does provide that. Another instance when I tend to gravitate more towards tarot is when I want some sort of neutral advice. By neutral advice, I mean, you know how oracle decks are all very themed, like heavily themed? Sometimes I feel like I don't want anything sugar-coated or too dark or anything. I just want a neutral stand, a neutral advice, a neutral point of view, right, from the cards. Now I do have to give a little side note here, because some tarot decks are also themed, especially modern indie decks, but even the classics tend to have their own like personality. I love to say that tarot and oracle decks have their personality. However, I still feel like tarot can still provide you with a more general sort of advice as opposed to oracle decks. With oracles, I feel, again, it's just my personal experience, but I feel like oracles are more specific for different kind of situations, and I'm gonna get into that in a moment when I start talking about oracle. But I just wanted to really mention here that I really tend to go to tarot when I really want a neutral, general advice with no flavor to it. Okay, I know it sounds weird, and I'm not sure if you understand this particular point. Maybe you will understand it better when I get into the oracle. So, okay, I think with that being said, you can sort of get the idea on when do I tend to use tarot. Now, it might sound a little bit vague at some point because I literally started this section saying that tarot for me is super universal and I would basically bring it with me anywhere I go. I actually do bring it with me anywhere I go. But as you can see, there are still some sort of patterns that lead me to tarot. And now I'm going to tell you about when do I actually go to oracle, or what do I use oracle decks for. And when I add that in the contrast, you will see it a little bit better what I'm talking about. So let's proceed with oracle decks. First of all, I'm going to begin this one saying that, again, all the oracle decks are themed. There is no such a thing as a classic oracle deck, a general oracle deck, or at least I do not know about its existence. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's not like in tarot you have Rider-Waite-Smith, you have Marseille, you have Thoth, you have these classics, right? In oracle you don't really have that. Every oracle deck is themed. So with that being said, I actually tend to use oracle decks for very specific type of readings. So for example, let me just quickly pick one. Messages from the Mermaids. I have an oracle deck that is mermaid based. It's images of mermaids with the titles on the cards. Mermaids are obviously watery beings. Water equals emotions, emotional body, emotional experience. Therefore, when I have some sort of a emotional turmoil, when I want to resolve something that kinda has to do with emotions, I tend to go to that deck. Now, I have to say that, for example, I do not really tend to do bigger readings with oracle decks. When it comes to oracle decks, I only tend to pick one card. For some reason, this is how I got used to doing that. So it's not like I'm doing a big reading regarding my emotions with that particular deck. It's usually like I need to know, I don't know, how to approach pick an emotion, anger. How to approach anger, because yeah, there are situations when I'm angry and I don't know what to do with all that, you know. So I pick a deck and I try to, you know, resolve it in a more spiritual way. So yeah, I pick one card. Or I'm going to give you another example because I feel like this category, the oracle decks, is kinda more practical to speak about, giving you actual examples. So for example, I have another deck which I tend to use for dream work, for example, because it's the Threads of Fate Lumen edition. By the way, I'm not bringing deck into this particular video right now. If you want to see these decks, there are plenty of videos on my channel that feature these decks, and then they're going to come back. But now we are just having a chat. We are not going to be looking at decks and wanting to buy them, okay? Yeah, anyway, back to topic. I use that deck for dream work because the imagery is very dreamy to me. It's a very pink, like pink with purple and blue sort of deck, and it really evokes in me the dream world and the state of consciousness when you are about to fall asleep. So for example, when I want to interpret a dream, by the way, I have a video about dream interpretation. Go ahead and watch it afterwards. So if I want to do that, for example, I go to that deck. I don't tend to go to tarot in that situation. Why? I don't know. I just feel like using an oracle deck for that. So there is that. These are just two examples, or how would I use oracle decks, so you can kind of understand and make a picture in your head about how do I approach it. So I always pick a deck that somehow fits the situation I need to do a reading on, if I'm obviously at home and I have those decks. If I'm traveling or I'm just somewhere else at someone else's place and I want to do a reading, as I mentioned previously, I always travel with the tarot deck. So if I wanted to, if I had like a wild dream and I wake up somewhere in the hotel and I really want to do a reading, then I do it with tarot, because I wouldn't have the oracle deck with me. This is kind of how it works, if you are getting the picture. So the other usage I have for oracle is actually the energy support reading, and this is something I really love to do. Every so often I don't do it on a daily basis. Actually, I'm not even doing tarot readings on a daily basis, but it is something I'm working on getting back into. I was briefly mentioning that in the video about my tarot goals for 2025. Again, if you haven't watched it, go ahead and watch it. Cool video, so many goals. I'm really curious about whether I'm actually gonna do that. But I was saying energy support readings. So what I like to do every so often is grab an oracle deck, whichever I feel like, depending on my mood or depending on my mood. I shuffle the deck and I just think about what energy can support me today. And I pull a card. Again, I pull just one card. And depending on the card that came up, I can kind of tune into what this card's energy is. And it is, I take it as an energy that can carry me throughout the day. So if I have a moment during the day and I feel like I'm falling apart or whatever, I kind of think back to the reading, I think about the card, and I try to align myself with the energy that is kind of there for me that day, or I try to think about how could I seek that energy, you know? So something like that, energy support readings, I really love those, I really do. And if you don't do those, or if you haven't tried, I strongly recommend it. They are awesome and they can really make a difference in your day. The other thing I really love to do with oracle, and I tend to go more towards oracle than tarot, is asking questions like, what does my soul need today? And what does my body need? These two questions are one of my favorites to ask oracle deck. And again, I just pull one card for the body and one card for the soul. So it is also a very lovely way to kind of energetically tune into what my body and soul might need. And I really love to see it in this separate way, the body and the soul, because sometimes your body, for example, needs rest, but maybe your soul needs something else, and you can sort of combine the two things that your body and soul needs, and you can find a way to actually provide yourself with what you entirely need. If that makes any sense, it really works for me. Okay, I've been doing these types of readings, asking these types of questions to my oracle decks for quite a few years now, and I really love those. They are really useful and helpful for me. So again, something I tend to go more to oracle for. Again, if I hadn't had oracle decks, I would ask tarot. But when I was trying to ask tarot these questions, I somehow found those to be a little more complicated, which brings me to the next point, and that is that I like to use oracle decks when I really need some sort of straightforward, simple answer. Because, as I mentioned when I was speaking about tarot to me is a tool that really goes deep. It really analyzes things in depth. It really gives you a huge perspective, because every tarot card has, I like to see this, every tarot card has a spectrum of meanings. It's not like one card means one thing, right? There is the positive side, there is the negative side, there are all the different angles, all the different layers even, which is something I'm learning with the thought deck. There is just so much about tarot. You can read tarot in the traditional way, you can read tarot intuitively, you can read it based on the images, based on numerology, based on astrology, based on the tree of life, based on like so many things, and I don't know, maybe there are even more things. I don't know, but these are some of the things that I can tell you from the top of my head. So this is why I see tarot more as something that really goes in depth, as opposed to the oracle, for example, because oracle cards tend to have the title, which is usually a simple title, or sometimes they have some keywords, right? Then again, sure, you also have guidebooks for oracle decks. I don't really use those very often. With some oracle decks I do, but with others I don't. It really depends on the deck. But what I'm trying to say, and where I'm trying to get here, I'm simply trying to say that with oracle, the answers to your questions are usually way more simple and obvious. Now, I'm not saying that it is always the case, because obviously you can go deep with an oracle card as well. And please don't get at me, it's just a feeling I have, I don't know. I feel like I'm stepping on a very thin ice here. But yeah, again, I'm just going to say again, this is just my personal practice and experience. So when I want a straightforward, quick answer, I go for oracle, usually. Speaking about guidebooks, actually something else occurred to me that I haven't even written down, but I really want to mention it now that I thought about it. When it comes to tarot, you are kind of required to have at least some base knowledge about it. Again, there are people who read tarot completely intuitively, and you can do that. You can do anything, by the way. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to forbid you anything. You can do whatever the hell you want with your tarot and oracle, but it is easier to work with tarot when you have some sort of basic knowledge about it. You don't have to know everything. You will probably never know everything, by the way, which is the fun part. You can always keep studying tarot, which is something I'm doing right now, by the way. But yeah, it is just easier to use and to read tarot when you have that basic knowledge. But when it comes to oracle decks, since every oracle is different, it makes the experience very, very different in terms of reading it. And this might be just me, but for instance, what tends to happen with me is that I have every oracle deck, almost every oracle deck with the guidebook. I don't tend to use those guidebooks much because I just go off of the card intuitively. So I look at the image, I look at the title of the card or the keywords. I have like 2 decks with keywords, and I just make the meaning out of it. But sometimes I really do want to know the artist's perspective, because after all, someone created the deck with the idea in their head, and I really want to know what they wanted to portray in there. But then again, sometimes I'm just lazy to grab a guidebook and go through it. So there are actually moments, and especially with some specific oracle decks, when I want something quick, like a quick reading, I don't really go to them if I don't have much time, because I still need to refer back to guidebook. So it is really something I just wanted to mention as a side note regarding guidebooks. Another moment, I go to oracle, something I almost forget to mention, and that would be a disaster, because I think that is the way how most people use oracle, and it is as a form of a companion to tarot, something like a clarifier, if you will. So you do a tarot reading and you just pull a few oracle cards, or one. I usually pull one, I don't know, I just love to see one oracle card. That's just my thing. But you can pull as many oracle cards as you want, you know, as a sort of a support to your tarot readings, as something to give it a little bit more depth even, or add more angles to it, or just make the reading richer. There are people who really love like huge spreads with even like multiple decks, and that's super amazing and awesome. I'm just super lazy to actually do that. But sometimes I do use an oracle deck with a tarot deck as a form of a companion to make some sort of a like patched message. You kind of mix the messages into one huge message, and that's something that oracle can help with, or actually be a very funny, it's a very funny and interesting and enriching component in the readings. So yeah, I also do that. Alright, you guys, I let my camera have a little rest and now I'm back. And I think that's actually all I wanted to say right now. I hope so. I always forget to say something, but you know what, never mind. Whatever, never mind, as Kurt Cobain would say. If you are a tarot reader or an oracle reader, or both, because the majority of us kind of read both of these systems, right? Let me know down below if you have any sort of system in when to grab which which deck, when to grab tarot deck and when to grab an oracle deck, or if you just go for it completely randomly, or depending on the mood or whatever. Let me know down below. And my lovely tarot and oracle beginners, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I gave you some ideas on how to work with these two systems, and just have fun with them would be my ultimate advice. Never stop learning and have fun with these. So yeah, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please leave it thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. It would make me really happy. If you want to hang out with me a little longer, I invite you to watch other videos available on my channel, or also follow me on Instagram. I post pretty much daily a variety of stuff. And I think now that would be it. So stay kind, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Bye bye!